Hey everybody, it's Joe from greenlightsound.com, and today we've got a mixing tip courtesy of Al Schmitt, and it really doesn't involve any special processing or tools, and it's what I call natural EQ, or EQ without plugins, or without hardware, or anything else. And it's all about leveraging the sources you already have in your mix. Al Schmitt was a really get it right at the source mixer, engineer, producer, using the right mic in the right place, at the right level, to get the tones you want, rather than using a lot of gear or plugins or anything else to get the job done. Al describes this in his book, which I highly recommend you check out. It's got a huge amount of great information for audio people in there. This works really well on any source with multiple mics on it, but can also work well on a mono source, which we'll look at later. One great example here is on kick drum. So I've got 3 kick drum mics in this mix that I was given. I've got a kick in mic, a kick out mic, and a kick reso mic. And if I solo each one up, you'll hear how each one has different tonal characteristics. Here's the kick in mic. A lot of click, a lot more top end to it. The kick out mic. A little woofier, a little deeper sounding. And finally, the reso mic. That's the boomiest with the most bottom end in it for sure. So what we can do is take each tonal characteristic and use it to our advantage. If we want a kick that's more snappy and more top end focused, we would leave the kick in mic up higher and bring down the faders on the kick out and the reso mics. Something like this. On the other hand, if we wanted sort of a deeper sounding kick, we would bring down that kick in mic and get more of our tone from the other 2 mics. Or if we wanted a lot of top and bottom end, kind of a scoop sound, we'd do more in, less out, and maybe some of that reso. So 3 totally different kick sounds, where you might reach for an EQ to do that on the main kick channel, where we can just do it with the faders between those 3 different mics, leveraging the sounds we already captured. We can do the same kind of thing with snare drum. Here's a snare top mic. And the normally ugly sounding snare bottom mic. So while that doesn't sound great on its own, the more we push up that snare bottom channel, the brighter we make the snare sound overall. So I'll start with the fader all the way down and then ride it up as it plays. If we want the snare darker, bring it down. Brighter, bring it up. So depending on how well recorded your snare drum is, you could just use the channel there to sort of shape the tone a bit. Maybe if you were going to use an EQ after that, you'd have to use less of it, which is good. Less is more in mixing. And finally, on a mono source, one of the stories Al Schmitt tells in his book is that a client, an artist, wanted the guitar part a little bit brighter, and rather than reach for EQ or grab the EQ on the desk and put like a high shelf on the guitar or bring up some of the upper mid-range, he just pushed the fader up a couple dB. And that little bit of a bump in volume gave an apparent brightness to the part that the client loved. Thought he might have EQ'd it, but he didn't. So we can try that on a single source here. Here's a guitar part. I'll play the guitar by itself so you can pick it out of the full mix. I'll start with it down a little bit in the full mix and then bring it up and listen to how it sounds like it's getting a little bit brighter when really it's just a couple dB louder. It seems like it's brighter just by pushing it up a couple dB, and I'll bring it back down. So a little tiny fader move might bring up that apparent brightness of the guitar, even though you're not using any EQ at all. So there we are, some really simple, in fact, as simple as it gets, mix tips courtesy of Al Schmitt, using your fader and the right balance to achieve the overall tone you want, rather than automatically reaching for a plugin or a hardware EQ every time. Simple is often better. Al Schmitt's mixes sound fantastic with often minimal processing on them. Now, of course, a caveat to this is it has to be a pretty well recorded source to begin with. If it sounds like trash, you're going to have to do a lot more processing. If it sounds better, you'll have to do less. And of course, he's working with some of the best mics and equipment around at the source, so it makes it a little bit easier for him. But if you've got some pretty good sounding material, try it in your next mix. Use the balance, use your faders to EQ rather than just automatically reaching for plug-in processing or hardware processing. If you have any questions or comments, let me know in the comments section. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already, so we can keep you in the loop as to what's coming up next, and I'll see you in the next one.